Purpose-inspired TV is under construction. During this process, we invite you to step into the journey. By joining our team, you have the chance to shape the very fabric of this channel with your creative ideas and skills. We believe that the true essence of innovation lies in collaboration, and together, we can create something truly extraordinary. We will provide content that ignites your passion, inspires personal growth, and encourages a positive impact on society. Our focus is on delivering shows that are entertaining, thought-provoking, educational, and uplifting. We want to hear your voice, your vision, and your recommendations for individuals you would love to see on our channel. We aim to create a channel that resonates deeply with viewers, challenging them to think bigger, dream bolder, and live a life of purpose. So, join us today, and together, we can make a difference, one viewer, one show, and one purpose at a time.
She Got the Nerve, by Felisa Darius Skipper. This book is fictional, but factual. Based on my personal life experiences, She Got the Nerve delves into Lila's astonishing journey with wisdom, compassion, and boldness, providing inspiring insights into her mindset and the spirituality that propelled her to become who she is today. Surrounded by drug use and constantly hurt and neglected by her parents, Layla is left alone to suffer a world of sexual abuse, religious ruse, and relationship violence. Through the worst of times, Layla learns to rise above the dangerous lifestyle of the streets she grew up on by allowing the love and guidance of Christ into her life. Looking for a book that takes you on a thrilling emotional roller coaster ride? Well, look no further. She Got the Nerve is the book that will captivate you from start to finish. Get your copy today.
Okay, what's up, everybody? I pray everybody's doing well. We are still celebrating Black History Month. I took all my equipment down to the parade. It's actually here in Jacksonville. The Martin Luther King Day parade was postponed from January to here in February on President's Day. So what I did was took a lot of equipment down to produce and broadcast the parade, but things changed. They changed the parade route and all that kind of good stuff. But we still broadcast from the parade, but my sound wasn't good. I'm not sure what happened, but you got good visuals of the parade. You still want to check it out. So we had the parade broadcasting on Roku, Fire TV, YouTube, and Facebook. And if somebody could you tell me in the comments? I guess if you couldn't hear me, you've said something by now. I took some of my equipment and my mics. I just hooked my mic back up, so I'm not sure if the mic is working properly. So if it is, give me a thumbs up. If it's too loud, too low, anything I need to do with the sound. If not, if y'all just seeing me move my lips, I'm telling you, let me know if the sound is sounding good. Okay, I'm not getting any comments yet. So I'm gonna move forward. Have any of you guys heard of this Tuskegee? Yes, Tuskegee. And I usually mess that word up. The Tuskegee Airmen. They were a group of African American pilots that were properly trained with no special, it was, it was fought tooth and nail to keep them from learning how to fly. So they learned how to fly, but then they were not permitted to go on missions, or when they did, it was like some minor missions, but eventually they was allowed to go into the war, and they did such a great job that the bombers that they were protecting requested the colored airmen because they did such a great job, but they still didn't get honored. They still didn't get recognized back home in America. That's another story for another day. So this time I am focusing on a woman pilot. As a young woman, she wanted to learn to pilot, but we was in a country where one, people of color had their rights pretty much stripped away. A little bit what I mean by that, so people of color here, quote unquote African Americans or African Americans of African descent, many were brought here against their will. Some traveled here, some were already here, but that's besides the point for right now. But so anyway, thank you for letting me know that this sound is sounding all right. Okay, so after 400 years of slavery, just jumping all through our history, the people of color were quote unquote freed and were given certain rights to be citizens. But as time went on, a lot of those rights were taken away, and we discussed this earlier about a lot of the Jim Crow laws, a lot of the laws that restricted or took away rights that the people of color gained when they gained their freedom. So a lot of them, so if at one point people of color had the right to vote, that right was taken away. At a particular time, the people of color had the rights to bear arms, to get guns. That was taken away. It was a lot of things, like working and living different places, getting jobs. A lot of things were taken away. Their rights and privileges were stripped of them. So during this time, this African descent, person of color, all those above, woman wanted to fly. She wanted to become a pilot, but our beloved United States would not teach her, or would not allow her to learn to fly. So she had to leave the country and go to another country that gave her freedoms to be able to learn how to fly, and then she returned. So that's a lot of people had to do that. They there are several things that our government, different officials in different states didn't want people of color to learn, or they didn't want them to know it. So they had to find other means, other ways to get the knowledge. Either they had to go to Canada, Mexico, or other countries to get the knowledge and then be able to return. Because some places it was the law that they couldn't learn certain things. So I want to tell this story. So I'm going to show this video. No, I should be clicking the button early. But it brings back, because this story and this person in history ties back to our city, Jacksonville. So which video should I play first? Let's play this one. It's Smithsonian. So this is entertainment, educational purpose only. Come on. Oh. Okay, yeah. I'll get me somebody working behind the scenes to be able to do this without me doing this on the air. Just a couple seconds. Oh, crazy stuff popping up on the screen now. What is going on? Okay, let me just slide the video over here. That'll work. Right there. Okay. Present screen. Share screen. Share screen. Entire screen with audio. And here we go. And here we go. Got it. Now, let's watch this together and get educated.
Blacks had the same dreams, the same aspirations, the same love of flight, but they were barred for social reasons. Never cast a long shadow.
Out of the shadow stepped Bessie Coleman.
Bessie Coleman is a dreamer, and she's a risk taker.
She was born in 1892, before airplanes and long before equality.
Bessie Coleman was born in poverty to a large family in Texas.
As she was growing up, the dream of flight went from fantasy to reality. Despite her background, she was compelled to pursue it herself.
She was a manicurist, but she decided she loved the idea and the adventure of flying.
No one in the United States would train a young Black woman to fly. But France had a world-renowned flight school that was more welcoming, if she could get there.
So she would work during the day at a chili parlor just to raise enough money for her travels to France, and at night she would teach herself French.
She raised money she didn't have, learned a language she didn't know, and earned an international pilot's license in 1921.
She's the first African-American woman with a license to fly.
And this was a real benchmark, not only for her race, but also for her gender.
Bessie Coleman is this amazing, strong individual who wouldn't take no for an answer.
With her pilot's license in hand, Coleman returned to an America fascinated with flight. Daredevil flight.
In the 1920s, barnstorming was a fascinating and exciting form of aviation where stunt pilots would go up and they do all types of tricks and aerobatics in their aircraft.
Barnstorming was part circus, part sport. Pilots competed for attention by pushing their planes to the limit. Bessie Coleman was no different, except she looked different.
Bessie Coleman, sitting behind the wheel of the plane, was a sight to be seen.
She was a small little woman, but she'd go up in that aircraft and she'd do her loops and her flips and, recover from stalls at the very bottom and blow everybody away.
There's no one like her. There's no one who had this internationally recognized flying license and at the same time was a young Black woman.
And for a blazingly short time, she was the most extraordinary woman in American culture, particularly for African Americans.
What a woman. What a woman. Now you hear that. Now, she was born even before airplanes was invented. And then I guess she must have saw one day and decided she wanted to be a pilot. Imagine, it didn't matter how poor she was. It didn't matter what her situation was. There was like not too long after slavery. And I know they was working hard, going through, I didn't see the, I don't remember the dates, probably during the Jim Crow era, where, like I said before, where she was probably limited on just regular education, limited on what kind of job she can get, limited on how much money that she can earn. But she had a dream. She had a focus, didn't care what the cost. She knew what the final prize was. So it doesn't matter what the cost is, it's what the reward is. So she paid the cost. She worked day and night and saved, didn't get discouraged as a whole. So she made it happen. And not only did she save to get to go to France, she even learned French. It's like whatever obstacle that came in her way, she tackled it. And that's I actually just remembered my coach. I have a business coach, and he told me I need to read this book called obstacle is the way. Obstacles, I got to look it up. I didn't find the book yet. I wrote down obstacles is the way. So I believe what it's saying is when you have obstacles, things that's coming up and cause you opposition and problems, obstacles, that's the direction that you need to be going. Handle those obstacles. And so she had a bunch of obstacles, and it's coming to me. She had obstacles. She didn't know French. So she faced that obstacle head on and learned French. She didn't have the money to make it to France because the country that she lived refused to teach her how to fly. So the obstacle, imagine being dirt poor. I mean, I can't describe how dirt poor is, dirt poor, and still work hard enough to save up enough money to go to France. And that's some dreaming, that's some pursuing of a purpose. That's some serious pursuit. So that's just inspiring to me. So that obstacles in the way. So every single obstacle that came her way, she faced it head on, went to France, not knowing, probably never even left, where she lived, probably haven't left too far from where she lived. Now you're leaving, going to a whole other country that's speaking another language, and learn, let them teach you how to fly, and then come back to the country. And really became famous from that gift, that talent that she learned. So she was world renowned. So I just got a message that the school here in Jacksonville, I'm gonna pop that up on the screen. Thank you. KIPP School in Jacksonville, Florida, named after Bessie Coleman. So I was getting, that is good. All these years I've been knowing about Miss Bessie Coleman, but I didn't know the ties to Jacksonville that she had. But yeah, she was well renowned, famous pilot. But she came to Jacksonville. I guess I'm gonna go ahead and jump into that video and show you what I just learned about her. And I actually did another story about her today on the news, but I didn't bring this one. So I'm gonna play this video here about her and Paxton. Just a couple of seconds. Computer takes the time. So
it's been over 100 years since the
you're doing what you want to do. Hold on, here we go. Add the stage.
It's been over 100 years since the first African American woman began flying planes after getting her pilot's license in France.
Jacksonville, but her inspiration lives on.
News for Jack's anchor Janice Harris takes a look back at Bessie Coleman, who inspired generations of female pilots.
It's the 1920s in industrial America. The Harlem Renaissance is booming. Women now have the right to vote. Cars are being made in mass production, and Bessie Coleman is an ambitious young woman inspired by Black pilots in World War I. She wants to learn how to fly a plane. Coleman is forbidden in the States, so she travels to France to learn and returns as the first African-American woman pilot in America. At the time, Jacksonville was a booming city, and La Villa was known as the Harlem of the South.
She definitely was going to bring
a crowd.
Local historian Adonica Toller explained.
So why was Bessie Coleman in Jacksonville?
The Jacksonville Negro League, Dr. White, asked her to come, and then she was here to raise money for the organization. She was here for a fundraiser.
Coleman's flying stunts were a sight to see and would draw a large crowd that would raise money. She practiced here at the then Paxson Airfield, now the location of Paxson School for Advanced Studies.
They were practicing and something would wear.
April 30th, 1926, when Coleman and her pilot, William Wills, were flying above the airfield, she fell from her plane.
And the reason she fell out, she was not strapped in because she was so short. She was looking over like she was trying to see what it looked like. And when the mechanical error happened, the plane did a nosedive. So she instantly fell out and hit the ground.
The Jacksonville Journal newspaper had this heartbreaking headline: Jack's airplane crash kills 2, with a photo of the plane destroyed and onlookers standing around. A trailblazer dead at 34 years old.
So we're sitting in the sanctuary here of the original Bethel because this is where she had her funeral.
Her first memorial service was here at the Bethel Church.
Wow.
Bethel Baptist Institutional Church.
Yes.
It is here.
This is Coleman's obituary, a copy from the funeral at the Bethel Church.
What is the significance of Bessie Coleman being here?
One, that she had the heart of helping everyone, and I think she understood the importance of how popular she was, and she understood that she could use that to help people.
At Paxson, Coleman's memory is kept alive.
This is the plaque that honors Bessie Coleman. She is memorialized and remembered for her accomplishments as an aviator, as a woman, and also as an African-American woman. She was only 34 years old when she passed away.
Though a short-lived life, she has inspired generations of women, like NASA astronaut Mae Jemison, the Bessie Coleman Aerospace Legacy, and girls around the world that becoming a pilot and anything you dream of is possible. Janice Harris, Channel 4, the local station.
Okay, I was muted. She did a lot in her 34 years. So that's what I didn't know about her ties to Jacksonville, about how she came here to help raise money and was going to do a show. And she was at the Paxson airfield. I didn't even know that there was an airfield there. It's so much history that we drive past every day. So there's the Paxson school there. It was the Paxson School of the Arts that's on that property now. But I didn't know that was a like I could say an airport, because they didn't have airports like they do now. So it was like an airfield. I probably was a piece of strip of land where the airplanes could come in and land, and probably they came here to watch the air show. But yeah, so it looked like she likes to help people also. I just can't imagine the drive that she had to even, audacious to even think about it. I want to get what y'all comment, what y'all think of the story of Miss Bessie Coleman, because it's just blowing my mind of how strong-willed she was. She didn't care what other people said or what other people thought. She didn't care what obstacles that was in her way. She didn't care if she didn't have the money. She was going to work and make sure. So it sounded like she was someone of few excuses. Sounded like she did not make a lot of excuses. She just addressed, looked at the obstacle, and took it on. Climbed over it, went around it, went on it, whatever it took to deal with that obstacle. She did it to make it happen. But it's just so tragic that she died doing what she loved. I guess that's the way to go. You died pursuing your purpose, and she died trying to help people. So that's what I would like. If I pass away, I'd rather pass away doing the right thing, doing what I'm supposed to be doing my purpose. So I say, anything in particular that impressed you with her about this story, or anybody know any other tidbits? Like I said, now I saw the plaque, so I wonder if I don't know if that plaque is on the outside of the school or if you have to go inside. And today they just made another like mini memorial for her in Paxton. So a lot of the students probably be able to see that. But that's just a powerful story that I just said. I was like, we got to keep these stories going. Except we're in state where I guess going to go political real quick, where I guess the Department of Education is under attack, but I guess they saying they plan on getting rid of it. And as I thought about that today, we did the story. We talked about the story of Ruby. I'm sorry, Ruby. What's Ruby? The little girl that integrated the schools, Ruby. So we know before Ruby, it was at first it was against the law for people of color, POCs, to go to school. It was against the law for POCs to get educated. It was against the law for them to learn how to read. It was against the law for other people to teach us how to read. So it had all these laws trying to make sure that the POCs did not get educated, did not learn to read, did not learn many of the abilities that other people had. So then, as time went on, I guess the slaves were freed. Like I said before, they was given certain rights. A lot of those rights were taken away. So not even that's like education. So now, yeah, POCs, yes, you're free, but we're not going to educate you. You got to figure it out on your own, and or you don't figure it out, we're going to lock you up and get you back working on our fields again. So they had to come up with different ways to get educated. And I think I'm going to interview Mrs. Cookman. You remember Bethune-Cookman University down in Daytona. I had the privilege to interview Mrs. Bethune's I think her granddaughter, and I'm scheduling to interview her again. But my point is like education. So the Department of Education, they decided to have, they called it separate but equal school system. So they had certain school. I mean, the white side of school was taught one thing, and the blacks was taught another. And again, when we went live a couple of days ago, we had people saying how when they were in school, they were just the POC school would get the leftover equipment. They would get the leftover books. They would get all the leftover stuff. A lot of the books was written all over. There was a lot of pages, a lot of stuff was missing out of it. So the money was not put into the POC school, but the whites, they pretty much got the stuff first. So that was the law. But as people protested, went against the grain, like that's not right. So the law was finally passed to integrate the schools. Again, that was the Department of Education. They were teaching, they had the curriculum, teaching the whites one thing, teaching the blacks hopefully around the same thing. But the law had changed. It was time to integrate, and many governments, many people, they did not want to integrate. They didn't want the POCs to get the same education that their children did. They wanted their children to have a step up. They wanted their children to have better advantages. They want their children to be better educated. They wanted them to have a head start. So so a lot of them felt because slavery was over, it was hurting them by people of color gaining knowledge and being able to better themselves. So they came up with the Jim Crow laws to slow those POCs down. Like, y'all doing too good. You're working, you're saving money, you're buying stuff. So no. You're catching up with the white folks. So we need to slow it down. So we came up with the Jim Crow laws that slow the people of color down. But they still thrived under that oppression. And then even with the school systems, they still thrive. No matter how bad and whatever was lacking in the school systems, they still thrive until the law changed to we got to integrate. black people and white people, they're both Americans and shouldn't be separation. It should be integration. It should be integrated, and everybody should be taught the same. All Americans should be taught the same. Whoa, you know the story. They did not like that. They did not like it at all. That was one thing I learned about the Ruby. Which I can tell what's Ruby's last name. But when little Ruby, I think when she was what 6 or 7, had to be escorted into the school and had all the mobs out there yelling and screaming at her because this little innocent little girl of color was getting ready to come into their school because they did not want her to learn. They did not want her to be educated. They didn't want her to get educated. And then that little person of color will compete against their children, and that little girl might do better. They didn't want that. They didn't want her to have any kind of opportunities. So what I didn't know until when I did the story last week, that all these family, Ruby Bridges, thank you, Ruby Bridges. So in little Miss Ruby Bridges, what I didn't know when they had to escort, and I had to correct myself too, I said it was the National Guard that had to protect her. It was the U.S. Marshals. The U.S. Marshals had to protect her and had to escort her to school every single day. And like I said, the other side of the story was when she went into school, all the white parents ran into school and took all their kids out because they didn't want their kids to be in the same school with the little person of color. So for the whole year, Miss Ruby Bridges had the whole school to herself. That's crazy because they didn't want their kids in the school with her. So imagine, so that's our Department of Education. So first of all, they didn't want the people of color to be educated. And then they decided, okay, we're going to educate them, but separate, but equal. That's what they say. It wasn't separate, equal. Then it got to the point where, okay, we have to integrate. So now they integrated. And a lot of what happened to a lot of schools, they integrated, but a lot of the non-people of color, they moved out to the suburbs and started other schools. So they moved away. They moved in other neighborhoods. So y'all heard of redlining. So people of color couldn't live in certain areas because of the redlining. So they would put a school over in the red line side. And like I said, I'm just paraphrasing history. So if I'm not saying something correctly, I'm telling you, I'm probably saying some stuff that's wrong. So you don't have to go off on me. So I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not using 100% the way everything went. But paraphrasing, they redlined. So they got away from the people of color, got their own schools, and then people of color start doing better. So they were able to live in those particular areas. They had to fight to get rid of the red line to keep people of color from living in certain areas. So, okay, so now people of color got to go to the same schools, supposed to be taught the same. So now let's come up with something different to get away from these people of color. Private schools. So now you got the private schools. So now people of wealth, people with money, are able to pay for private schools and to get them away from the regular schools. So a lot of the non-whites left the inner city. When they left, a lot of the money left. So a lot of, you can see a lot of dilapidation, a lot of rundown schools. That's majority of people of color. Is not the same. So you can go see wherever the people of color ran off to, that's where the money ran off to. So as you know, in present history now, so what's a way to still keep everything the same? So we really still do not want people of color to be educated. We still don't want them to be educated like the non. So we want to figure out a way to make sure they don't get into the colleges. Now make sure that their school system doesn't have the funding. So let's pull out the non-whites. Let's go to private schools. And let's go to charter schools. So then they pass these laws to have vouchers. So vouchers sound like a good thing. But if you have a little extra money, you can take the voucher and put your money with it and take them to a more expensive school. So now with these voucher systems, you're taking money from the public school system. So now they even have less to work with. So now that they would say that everybody's equal, everybody can have the same, everybody should be able to get the vouchers. Okay. They show some examples of like some of the really great, really good schools where there are very few people of color there. I'm just making up this number just off the top of my head. Let's say this school costs $20,000 a year. So the wealthy people are able to pay that $20,000 a year. So now they're saying it's not fair that this money's going into different schools. So they came up with a voucher system. So we'll give you $10,000 to go towards your private school. So now the people of color, you have the same ability to go, but the school is $20,000 and you can get $10,000. You're still $10,000 short. So you're still not able to go to that school. So then if a whole lot of people of color was able to get the $20,000, you know what would happen. The prices would go up, probably go up to $50,000. So now we don't have the $50,000 to be able to go to that school. So now they got different ways to exclude people of color from coming to those different schools. So now at the same time, all these fundings are going away from the public school system. So a lot of the grades and a lot of scores are starting to go down. So now, I guess our government now is looking like, hey, so y'all are not doing too well. Y'all are not educating the people. Y'all are not educating the kids. The kids are not doing good. So let's just get rid of the whole Department of Education altogether. It's not, but mostly people of color left there using it anyway, because the other people who has the money, they're going to private schools, they're going to charter schools, they're going to different places that's not under the control of the Department of Education. So now let's get rid of the Department of Education. So now what does that mean? What does that mean? What's left? Is it now only the wealthy, the only people who have money that can go pay for private school? What's the plan? If we get rid of the Department of Education, what if we get rid of public education? What if we get rid of the education? So what I've heard was that the government, the federal government, is not responsible or should not be responsible for educating and making sure that all the kids will get educated. So that's one way. Let's get rid of the Department of Education. It's no longer the responsibility of the country, of the federal government to educate the children. Now we've given it back to the states. But you remember this little girl named Ruby Bridges. That state did not want her to come into the schools. The federal government with the U.S. Marshals had to force the state to let the person of color go to school. So there's a lot of states that like the separation. They like this, the separation and segregation. They like the Jim Crow laws. So now you're putting it back into the hands of the people that you had to force to let people of color to come to school in the first place. You're putting it back into the hands of the people that you had to force to even educate the people of color. So you see, am I talking to myself? Does that make any kind of sense? The people who did not want the people of color educated, and the federal government had to come in and force them to educate people of color. Now we think, yeah, they do a better job educating them, so we're going to put it back in their hands and let them decide. So we're in a state, Florida, where any kind of education of Black history, people of color history, so they are purging those books. They don't want that taught. They don't want the history of what happened in our country. They don't want slavery taught. They don't want the Jim Crow era. They don't want that stuff to be taught. They don't want the hanging, the lynchings and stuff. They don't want that to be taught. They don't want anything that will make a non-white person feel bad. And it's still, I look at it's history, but they don't want things like that to make their children feel bad. So they are banning books. So banning education. They're trying to ban knowledge. So now you trying to tell me, you think that person or that government would do a better job of educating people of color. So it sounds to me like they really don't want to educate those people. And if they do, they got a quote unquote whitewashed version of history that they want to teach them. And they will get penalized for learning anything beyond that. So it sounds kind of crazy. It sounds kind of off, where you know that you have problems with particular states. A lot of the states, especially a lot of the southern states, you had a lot of problems with them educating everybody equally. You know you have problems with them. So now you all of a sudden you want to give them the power again to really take us back. Taking us back. It doesn't make sense. If somebody else could tell me, give me reasons why or how this makes more sense. This makes sense of what's happening. How if you have a country or a state that is telling you, we don't give a hootenanny about this particular demographic. We don't give a hootenanny about these particular people. We don't care if they get educated. We don't care what happens to them, as long as ours get the best. We want to make sure they get the best education. We want to make sure our people get the best jobs. And we don't care what happens to the rest of them. You telling me putting all that back into their controls. And when they demonstrated many time and time again, they don't want to do the right thing, and they don't do the right thing. So now we're going to turn back to them and say they're going to do a better job. That doesn't make good sense to me. So anybody got an opinion on what I'm talking about, or how the education system is changing right in front of our faces? Anybody? I know a lot of teachers. I don't know if any of the teachers are online right now. They can tell me different things, different changes that they're seeing. But I know a lot of them were telling about how there's so many cuts, so much money is being taken out of the school system, that there's a lot of they're cutting a lot of jobs. So I can see, if you have a system where people can get money and take it somewhere else, so you're taking it out of the public, and they're taking public money and taking it to private, the public is gonna suffer. How can the system continue to go? How can it thrive if it's already being drained, being sucked dry? So I'm gonna pop up here. You scared for our children's future. So what do you think could be done to bring some correction? What could be done to fix it? So right now it just looks like it's all trying to be torn down, and I don't hear anyone saying anything about what's new. So let's just say the voucher system. Like I don't have any kids in the school system, so I'm not the right one. If someone, like I said, again, someone's online, will have to jump in and add to the conversation. But like I said, if you're taken from the schools, if you're taken from the let's say like the Department of Education or public, let's say public schools, if you're taken away from the public schools and making it private, now it's all over the place. We're not I gotta add another comment. So we need to start teaching at home also. Okay, that's still under the public school system. That's, if I'm not mistaken, you can't just I guess you can, but I guess no credit, no, what's that word I'm talking about? Accreditation. You can't just say I'm a parent and I'm keeping my children home. I'm going to keep them. I'm going to teach them myself. I guess they get rid of the Department of Education. I guess you may not be breaking the law. But as far as I understand, you have to have the schools. Even if you teach them at home, you have some kind of accreditation, and normally that is under the same school system. Yes, you are teaching your children at home, but they still giving you some material to teach them, and then at some point they have to do some kind of testing to learn to see if that child did learn. So it's even homeschooling. Yeah, you teach them at home, but you still have to teach them what that system is telling you to teach them. So I guess I can get a homeschooler to tell me if that's something different. But yeah, how can just random people? I'm homeschooling and I'm under nobody. That child's really, yeah. If that child is getting homeschooled with no accreditation, that means they're really not going to get the diploma. So now they kind of really hurt by not being able to get accreditation for the homeschooling, being able to get a diploma, and then they can't even go get further education because the parent is I'm just going to homeschool without no kind of accreditation. I think that's yeah. So anyway, so the accreditation is still under, as far as I understand, the public school system. Or I don't know if you can go to a private school and get it from them, but I know you're not going to be getting it at no charge as the public school system. So I believe they're getting rid of the no charge school system and replacing it with what? And as like I said, I hear the federal government saying, let's take the money, whatever money that the federal government is spending, take all that back, and have the state. And some states really don't have the money for it, but let's force the states to take care of it. If you do, you do. You don't, you don't. It's not the federal government's problem. It's that state's problem. So now the people in that particular state have to figure out what to do. And I guess if you're in a state, everybody can't just up and move. But if that's the case, if the federal government pulls out, sometimes that might be the only solution that some parents might have. Is I'm in a state that doesn't care about my children, doesn't care if my children get educated or not. So I have to move to another state to be able to get educated. And there might even be some situation where it'll be hard to even do that. It's a lot of stuff is changing, but we do need to learn as much as we can on our own. We need to teach our kids as much as possible as we can. We really don't have too many excuses these days. You can get a quality education without being part of the school system. Like it just, but it's like, well, educated on what? So there's no one that knows everything. So it's just certain things, certain areas, or certain bits and pieces of things that the system requires you to learn. So as we go through, like we constantly learn. So even when you got to school, I try to tell the children. Even when I went on the road trip with my grandson, I was telling him something about learning something, and he's like, "Why? I'm not in school." I'm like, "You are learning at all times. It's never just because the school says we go to school from 8 to 3, and that's when I'm supposed to learn, and then at 3 o'clock I can stop learning." No, it's you're supposed to be learning all day, every day, even especially with children during play. When they're playing, they are learning something. So that's what I'm really about. Like even with choice, The child's like, okay, is the child going to learn something with this toy, or is just going to be brain numbing? We're in a day and age where it's getting hard out there. The young people, it's different. Always so different from when I say we, let's say 50, 30, 40 years old. It's way different now. Money is different. The dollar, it does not mean the same anymore. We was talking about saving, getting prepared for retirement. $1 million is not enough for retirement. You think $1 million is a lot of money? $1 million is $1 million is not a lot of money. When people want to buy houses, what they say the average house is like $300,000-$400,000. When I went and got my first house, I think the average house was around maybe 70,000. It was less than 100,000. And now these years later, $400,000. Another area is 500,000. Those certain areas are $1 million, $1.5 million. So the money is totally different. And housing was a smaller percentage of our pay. I mean, like I said, if you a person with a decent paycheck now, and they would like to buy a house, the percentage of what they have to spend is way higher than we did when 20, 30 years ago. So we really can't look at the younger people and say, why you haven't bought a house yet? How come you haven't did this and that yet? It's totally different, but it's still doable. It's still doable, especially if we get educated. That's what we've been learning about the stock market. We've been learning about investing. We've been learning about owning property. We've been learning about trust. There's so many different things that's out there to help get your children on their feet. The biggest thing I've been learning, I don't know how they got on this subject here, but nobody's talking over here, so I'm gonna keep talking. Like the Bible tells you about generational wealth. You're supposed to leave something from your children's and your children's children. You ain't doing that by working a regular job, working a 9 to 5. It's not possible. And even the money that you think you got saved up is barely. It's majority of Americans. I'm talking to American people right now. It's barely enough. It's barely. If you look, and that's one thing that had I had tears coming out of my eyes. A lot of people do not know their financial situation. They think they believe they're in a better situation than they really are. Like I said, their money is different. That money from back in the day ain't the same money just today. But a lot of people, you need to check your finances. And actually, we're going to do a class on it. I'm going to have several classes that I'm going to be setting up. I think we'll be broadcasting them on the TV channel about finances, wills and trusts, family wealth, having your own bank, a lot of those different things we're going to put together and have some classes, because I think a lot of people do not know their financial situation. When they get to this retirement age, they're going to be rudely awakening. A lot of people are going to be crying when they think that they're able to retire. And then when they get to that point, they see that they don't have enough money to retire. They're going to have to work an extra 5, probably extra 10 years, or they just got to keep on working because the money they thought they had is not going to be there. You just can't. You can't work hard enough. You can't. I'm talking about regular working job. You can't save enough. Like I said, an average person needs probably at least $2 million when they retire. And I guess a lot of you guys, will you have $2 million when you retire? Do you have $2 million to live off of? If you think I got $500,000 when I retire, you ain't gonna make it. You can be going to Walmart and getting a greetings job if Walmart don't decide to go ahead and hire a robot to do that. Yeah, so now we're competing against we can be competing against the younger people trying to get jobs. We can be competing against older people who don't have the right amount of money to retire. And you can be competing against robots that's trying to replace people's jobs. So that's why you have that. I don't know if y'all heard, it was out there, it was spoken, universal income. Just check that out, universal income. But it's past time for us to get educated, know what's going on in your finances, even with education, making sure your child is getting the right education. If your child is blessed enough to go to college, make sure your child is getting a education that when they graduate, they will be able to get a good job. And I'm not even there still need to be people that work jobs. I'm never going to stop saying that, but I am 1,000% advocate for everybody starting a business. This country is based, these laws of this country is based on business. It's based on business, not based on you as an individual. In the last few minutes, I'm gonna say this before this last little bit, this little tidbit I've learned over the last few weeks in the training. Imagine, write your name down. I'm gonna write down, I'm gonna do this real quick. Write down over here, Joe. Joe, average Joe working a job, and here is Joe Incorporated. I can tell you this how the government works, and y'all, a lot of people do not know it. Joe, the worker, when Joe, the worker, works and get paid, when he gets paid, he gets taxed. So let's say Joe made $1,000. They took out $100, left Joe with $900. Now Joe have to spend, or they probably take out a little bit more. Let's say they take out $200. He got $800 to take care of everything. Joe Incorporated is a business. Joe Incorporated made $1,000. Joe Incorporated goes and spend $1,000, and then he is taxed. There's nothing to tax because Joe Incorporated spent all the money. Joe the worker made $1,000, and then Joe the worker gets taxed immediately, and his money goes down, and he only has the $800 or less to spend. Joe Incorporated has the full $1,000 to spend. And after he's finished spending and he shows what he spent all the money on, then he gets taxed on what's left. There's nothing to be taxed on. That's why they say a lot of the rich and powerful people pay less taxes than their, like we know the story of Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett's secretary pays less money, he pays more taxes than Warren Buffett because his secretary is the worker. And when she works, her money gets taxed first, gets tore up all these taxes that go into the government, and then whatever's left over, that's what she gets. Warren Buffett, he knows how to show all his money disappears. Yeah, I made $1 billion, but all that $1 billion is here and there and everywhere, so I got zero left. So now let's tax that zero, so now he don't have to pay any taxes. That's how it works. This country is built around business. You need to start a business, a legit, a legal. I'm not talking about no fake business like the stuff that people started doing COVID, but a real business. So we're going to be talking about that later. We're going to be having some classes on it. I'm going to be doing some everything because I'm passionate about it. I would like to help people. Our business will help people get on their feet. I'm telling you, that's just the way it is. All right, stay tuned. We got some good news. We are working on another studio. Just stay tuned. Pray for us. Pray for Purpose Inspired TV. We are here to help you and help the community and help keep the kingdom of God moving forward. Okay. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I pray everybody be blessed. Until next time, Joe out.